let me get this right. This is a big, giant waste of time. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely not. I know that you had a guest on the other day with a different opinion on this, but today I want to show you how doing studies can actually save you a ton of time.
Okay, so I think what you're referring to is we had someone who was saying that thumbnails are a waste of time, and you're saying thumbnails are not a waste of time.
That is correct, and I hope to
Okay,
make a very convincing argument for your audience today.
so we got a little tug of war going on here. Okay,
Sometimes intellectual disagreement is the most fun, right?
absolutely. Well, then and so what are you going to teach us today? You're going to show us what?
Okay, so I'm going to work from a nice big still life today, something very dramatic in florals. I'm pretty well known for my floral work. And we're going to start by talking about the setup and some questions that I have when I was setting it up. And then we're going to do some studies to try to answer those questions. And then we're going to adjust the still life at the end.
So what you're basically saying is you work out the problems before you have the problems.
Exactly. I don't want to spend 40 hours on a painting only to discover that I wanted, a flower 2 inches to the left.
Okay, well, I'm glad you're at least paying attention. All right, Mandy Theis, we're going to have you on in just a second. Let's get the show officially started.
It's Art School Live with Eric Rhoads. Now, here's your host, Eric Rhoads.
One of our reliable regulars who is such a brilliant teacher is going to be teaching you today a little bit about preparing for paintings and how you can kind of work out the details before you begin, which is contrary to what we had on yesterday with 𝗧𝗶𝗺𝗀, which he was saying, you don't need that stuff. So it's okay. There's just a lot of different opinions on this. You get to decide what works for you. Our guest today is Mandy Theis, and she's a rock star painter. Let's look at some of her work. Okay, so she is known for her still lifes and florals. There's one. There's her setup, it looks like. And there's some flowers. Good. So you're going to learn a little bit about that too today. So we're going to do it. Let's get right to Mandy Theis.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me on the show. I love being here. I love working with your audience. It's always wonderful to see what a strong following you have and all this passion and love for learning art. And I think
want to know what's on your record player. That's what's getting my attention.
Currently, what's on my record player? The best of the Russ Morgan and his orchestra. Yes, old school classics. I inherited my grandfather's record collection, so I've been slowly working my way through while I've been painting.
Oh, nice. Very nice. Okay.
So I won't be playing music for you today because it might disrupt the teaching, but I strongly recommend a record player. It's perfect because it's like 20 minutes per side, which is a great amount of time to work and then give your eye a little bit of a break. So it's kind of better than a timer because it just kind of softly ends and then you know it's time to take a break and then you turn the side. So
what a great idea.
I'm a big fan. But today I hope to introduce some additional ideas to your audience. Now, I want to start by saying that sometimes in atelier training, we have people that fought really passionately to save this knowledge and this training from near extinction, right? And, sometimes we get a little dogmatic, like this is the one true way, and this is the one, true path forward. And if you don't do it like this, are you even doing it the right way, et cetera, et cetera. And so what I want to show your audience today and kind of play off of our, previous guests is that there's actually a lot of different approaches and they'll give you different results. And some approaches work better for different problems, right? So it's always nice to have what I consider kind of tools in your toolbox. Like if you have a hammer and some nails and a level or whatever, and you might not need the level today, and that's fine. But if you do need a level, it's in your skill set, it's in your toolbox, and it's ready for you to use when you need it. So today, I hope to give you the tool of working with studies to save you time instead of costing you more time. So you can see behind me here, I've set up this like little floral, well, I say little, but it's not little at all, right? This is somewhat giant floral arrangement. And sometimes when we work really big, right, we need different ideas, different things to think about than when we're working really small. When we work really small, it's not a big deal to kind of move things around and arrange them and see how it's working compositionally. When we're working really big, sometimes we miss out on the big ideas when we just like go in and start slapping paint on a canvas. So I find that when you make small studies of a big subject, it helps you figure out some of your composition issues, some of your ideas about how you want to approach the still life, et cetera, things like that.
Okay.
Now, so what we're going to be talking about today is not just the arrangement of things. People often think composition is, oh, I want to move this flower over here. I want to add a second ribbon. I want this higher or lower. And those are all true about arranging. But something that's a little bit more subtle in arranging and in composition is controlling your environment. Absolutely. Right? Atelier people can be a little bit of control freaks. But is this back wall color the exact color that you want it to be? Or is it the default because I have a neutralish background color, right? Is the dresser the color that you want it to be? Or is it just the default that is there and I'm working around it? And how would you go about changing it without having to make stuff up in your head? So I'm going to share one of my favorite secrets with your audience today about controlling your environment, because I believe as much as possible, you want to be working from life and painting as much as what you see exactly the way you see it as possible, and to make up as little as possible, because it's a harder problem to have. So let's say I dislike this background color that I want to change it in some way. Here's one of my favorite things. So I like to collect from fabric stores. This is called tulle, right? And when it's crunched together, it's a concentrated color. When it's loose, it'll just subtly change the background. It's kind of like a glaze for your background. For example, if I put this over my wall single like this, it's just warming up a little bit with a pinkish hue, right? If I want it to be extra pink in the background, or I guess this is really maroon, whatever you want to call it, I can start doubling it. So it's kind of a way to change in a subtle way the color of your wall. Now, where this gets really interesting is, let's say I want to lighten the value and make it more pinkish maroon color. I can put white, right? Just like I would mix paint to lighten my background. I can layer white and also then my maroon on top of that, and it'll give me a lighter pink on that wall color behind me. The same is true, of course, for my dresser, right? Like I can put any number one of these glazes on my dresser to slightly adjust what the color is going to look like. So this is one of my secret tricks to help students make sure that they're painting what they want. And what
good idea. I've never seen that. That's really smart.
Shout out to Paul Ingebrigtsen, who also has a fabulous YouTube channel. That's where I learned it when I was studying with him. But it's a great way to just control what you're seeing. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to do some studies where we're making big adjustments, because guess what? People think the background is an afterthought. It's not. It's the largest thing in this painting. It's going to take up the most space of any other thing in this painting by square inch on my canvas. And so when we do our studies today, we're going to figure out what colors we actually want to have there by doing these little studies. And then we're actually going to apply the glazes to get the color that we want. So we can be in control. All right.
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. So give me just 1 second here while I transition. I'm going to do the studies digitally today. So I'm just going to transition to my iPad here quickly, and then I'll be ready to go.
Okay.
Okay, so just got to share the screen here.
You guys are just tuning in. Mandy Theis is our guest today. We're talking about doing studies so you don't waste a lot of time. And we're here every weekday at 12 noon. If you are not a subscriber, make sure to subscribe to this program. Go to YouTube, look up Art School Live, and hit the subscribe button. How difficult can that be?
Hit that button. All right. Are you able to see my iPad screen and my red scribbles, Eric?
Yeah, I think we're about to.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I can no longer see you in the chat, so I need your guidance here while I'm working digitally. To
Right.
make
You
sure
don't need to see me. Hello, Egypt. Welcome, Egypt.
Okay, so we have this photo, and I rarely ever work from photos. If I was doing the study and it was just me in my studio, I would just be looking at the subject in front of me. But I have found when teaching online, especially, that the audience gets a much clearer view when I work digitally. So I'm trying to integrate that into my teaching practice for all of you today. But that being said, when you take a photo, it will look different than what you're seeing with your eyes. And the reason for that is that when you're looking out there in the world, you're taking in massive amounts of visual information, right? And you have two eyes. You're seeing in 3 dimensions because you have 2 eyes, or most of us do at least. So what happens is that the camera is taking massive amounts of information and editing it out, but it's making different choices than you as a human are necessarily making when you're looking. And in my opinion, everybody like has slightly different calibrated eyes, right? So what I want to do first is just slightly adjust this photo to more closely match what I'm viewing in real life. And the biggest issue that I'm seeing right now is that the camera has largely made the greenery in the bouquet the same as the greenery on the dresser. Whereas in real life, not only is the bouquet darker, it's actually also more of a blue-green. So the very first thing I'm going to do is just get a dark bluish green, and I'm going to glaze over by taking the opacity down. I'm just going to glaze over a little bit of this dark area just to make it better match what we're seeing. And it's going to have to be even darker, I think. All right, so do you see how I'm just kind of glazing over this picture just to give it a little bit closer of a match to what I'm seeing in real life? So I'm not going to, go over every single leaf, but the areas that are darker, I definitely want to make sure are reading the way I do in real life. It's not going to help me at all if I'm doing these studies and they're based off a picture that is completely different than what I'm seeing in real life.
Right.
Okay, so those of you who like working from photos, I try not to villainize it, even though it's a choice that I prefer not to make if I can get away with it. But if you are going to work from photos, make sure you take your photos back to what you were seeing and make any adjustments, that are important to you, that, represent that difference between what you see and what.
Well, that's not always possible.
That is true. So one thing you can do, like, let's say, like, for example, we were at the Plein Air Convention in beautiful Lake Tahoe not too long ago. And, I stopped on the side of the road and took some pictures because I was just so overwhelmed with the beauty, but I didn't have time to stop and paint. But what I did is I made a few notes in my sketchbook about what the color difference was between my photograph and what I was seeing with my eyes so that I could make the adjustments later on. Also, traveling with an iPad always helps because it only takes a few minutes to, put the photo in here and just make a few adjustments as you take it. But you're right, it's not always possible, but if you can do it, it's ideal. So what we're going to do is, okay, we've made some adjustments here. And another thing is that this shadow needs to be a little darker and a little more green on this desk. So I'm just going to add that in as well. So now we have a slightly better idea of what's going on. One thing that I'm seeing too when I'm looking at this is that there's a stick in this front area here that got lost and is actually quite bright. So I'm just going to restate this stick visually so that we don't forget it, in our little select, because this is kind of giving us the relief within all that dark. And we also have a few flowers here that have a little bit of lightness that are coming through. All right, so this is my photo adjusted, and now I'm ready to start my ideas of my studies, okay? So what I like to do when I'm doing studies is that, first of all, you have to force yourself to do more than one study, right? So at first I'm like, oh, we're going to do a study. And now I'm like, no, we're going to do lots of studies, because almost never is your first idea your best idea. And if you force yourself to come up with at least a few different ideas, then you can really get the gold, right? They're almost always just one layer under your first thoughts. All right, so what I'm going to do here, I'm going to get a new layer so that I don't mess things up, and I'm going to lock these. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do at least 3 different studies. So I've set this up so that I can do, 1, 2, 3. Okay. And these aren't perfect. Like we're not creating a digital painting here that's exactly precise. What we're trying to do is evaluate how we feel about our colors, our background, our composition, and then go back to our original and make any adjustments we want for our final painting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make my brush size much bigger. I'm going to go back to full opacity. And I'm just going to start pooling colors, and I'm cheating a little bit. I'm going to start by just kind of pooling some colors, you know, directly from the photo, because why not? It's an advantage of digital painting. Of course, we always want to adjust them, but we have something like this. You know, we have this darker bluey green in here. We have this lighter kind of fluffy. Well, that wasn't very light. We want this kind of lighter, more neon green here. It's getting kind of lighter out this direction. All right, so a study is not a miniature painting. A study is an idea, right? We just want the idea of what's going on. And of course, we want this background color as well. All right, so right now, this is an approximate representation of what's going on. We have some of the big ideas in here. We're not fussing. We're not making a big deal, right? We're not worried about drawing. We're trying to just get the big ideas in of the painting. Of course, we have, this is the big part of what's going on here, and it has some lightness to it as well. All right, so we have like one big flower. We have, you know, kind of this greenery. And I'm looking overall at the composition, and I'm asking myself, what do I like and what do I not like? What do I want to change? Oh, we should probably get this top plane of the dresser in here. That's somewhat important, right? Something like that. All right, so when I'm looking at this just as colors, right? So this is what we would call a color study, maybe even a poster study, a digital poster study. What is it that we like and what is it that we don't like? We need some darkness under here. This is kind of setting the whole thing down. Okay, so I like this arrangement of greens. I'm not totally convinced on this background situation here. So the first thing I want to do is start considering what other options I have for my background. And you know what? The study took me all of a minute to do. So it's not so hard to, you know, adjust the background in different ways and see how I feel about it. So sometimes I like to do something really crazy, like get just a crazy color in there, like maybe this orange color, right? And just see, right? You know, because when you go crazy for your first color, even if you hate it, it makes it easier to try other colors, right? And I am not liking this orange at all, but
I like it.
You do. Tell me why you like it.
I don't know. I just like it. I don't like it because it's not complimentary, but I do like it because it's warm.
Okay, so let's go with that. So if we have some warmth, it does give some chroma note because it's balancing out. It's at about the same level of chroma as this green here, which is kind of nice. So it's kind of playing, you know, it's makes this painting more about a chroma concept than necessarily even the flowers, but that can be cool too.
You need to explain chroma to people.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so there's 3 elements to every color. We have the value, how light or dark a color is. So in this case, we have 2 greens. This is a dark green. This is a light green. They're both green, but they're different values. Hue is red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. So the hue of this is green. The hue of this is green. The hue of this is orange, etc. Something to keep in mind about hue is that people get really confused once we get a color like this, because you know, a lot of people are tempted to say, oh, that's white. But there's no such thing as white, and there's no such thing as black. There's only very, very, very light red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, or very, very, very dark red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. So this area here is not white at all. It's actually a really, really light yellow compared to our background color here, which is a really, really light blue. But both of them have a hue. There's no such thing as white. It's not red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, white, right? It's just that they're so light in value that it's harder to tell what the hue is, what the color is. All right, so we have value, how light or dark it is, hue, which is red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. And the third element is chroma. Chroma is the intensity of the color. So right now, this orange background is slightly neutralized, whereas if I were to put this color next to it, this is a more chromatic orange than the background. So it's the intensity of the color. Another question I get asked a lot in my teaching practice is, well, where does brown go on the color wheel, right? Well, there's only red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. There's no red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, brown, but brown is actually just a neutralized orange. So, you know, we have this chromatic orange here, a slightly more neutralized orange in the background. But if I really neutralize this orange, ta-da, we get brown. Okay. So most browns, not all browns, but most browns are neutralized orange. Okay, so value, chroma, hue. So this study is turning the painting from the emphasis being about a nice organic floral work into being a painting about chroma. Okay, because all of a sudden we have a lot of color in this painting. For those of you who might be familiar with kind of Gilded Age painting, the arts and crafts movement style painting very much became decorative, an emphasis of decoration and how the colors of a painting would fit into a room overall. And, so if I were inspired by that, if I were trying to channel my inner Tiffany, I would be like, yes, or my Lafarge, my inner Lafarge, I would say, yes, let's do a chroma painting like this. And actually, now that we've kind of talked through it, I have to agree with you, Eric, a little bit. It's grown on me. I like it more than I did when I first laid it down. Let's try at least one more here. Let's try something more neutral. So we went to a pretty chromatic background color. Let's try something just a little more neutral, something like maybe a warm neutralized light in this background. Like a lighter value, I feel like might show off some of these branches. So then all of a sudden, if we're worried about branches, it's more about shape in a painting, right? So I'm going to redraw these branches in here, right? Because we have these kind of branches coming off in various directions. And the lighter value is allowing those branches to really sing, right? Oh, I need this color. There's more contrast between these branches now and the background. And now all of a sudden this painting has become much more about a dark shape of the leaves against a light background. So we have two completely different paintings. Let's compare them, right? So if I take this off, this is a painting where the purpose of it is like a chroma kind of note. It's a color painting. And then when we go this direction, it's much more of a like, what's the shape? So it's about the contrast between the greenery on a background, and that contrast in value between the light background and the dark greenery is making the shape the most important part of this painting, right? So I hope what you're seeing as or learning while I'm going through this is that your choices can make such a difference about what the overall intention of your painting is. And the studies that you're doing can help you understand how you're painting, why you're painting what you're painting, and what you actually care about in the painting. Do you care about having a nice color moment? Then we should go with this orange. Do you care about having a really beautiful shape? Then we should emphasize a lighter background. Okay. So this is just all we did here was change a background. We didn't do anything else. And look at how many choices are opened up to us just because we took the time to do a study. So what I'm hoping, that I can share with you today is that there's intentionality behind everything we do as a painter. You have massive amounts of control. In my opinion, much more control than a camera, because you are using your choices to change what's in front of you, not the machine's choice of changing what's in front of you. Okay, so we did some studies where we explored, just the background color. That's the only thing we did there. Now let's do a study where we kind of change the composition a little bit around. So again, I'm just going to quickly put in, some of our ideas here. Oh, you know what I can do actually? Let's do this. Oh, sorry.
Who are you asking these questions of, yourself?
I guess so. I've just got like really excited here momentarily. But I just realized what I wanted to do won't work. So let's just redo it really quickly. I'm still kind of figuring out my methods for digital painting. It's somewhat new to me. That feels a little cold and a little dull. So do you see how I kept I darkened the value slightly and I made it slightly more chromatic to match the overall color that I'm seeing here? Oops, that's not what I wanted. I'm feeling very chatty today, so if there's any questions in the chat that I've missed, please don't hesitate to.
Mandy,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know this, but you're chatty every day.
It's true. It's true. I can't keep all of my enthusiasm for teaching art to myself, Eric.
I'm looking for questions.
Don't be shy, folks.
Is a video taken on a phone more true to color than a photograph?
I mean, every phone is different. Every video is going to be different. But for the most part, the way that the camera is programmed to interpret visual information is never going to be exactly the same as the way that you see it. So no matter what technology you're using to capture video, always compare it to what you actually see.
Cameras lie. Cameras
Yes.
are big, fat, stinking liars.
Whoever wrote that, I love.
And so a camera averages out to try to make the most pleasing photograph. And so what happens if you're pointing it at a scene, let's say you're an outdoor scene, the sky is going to be too bright. It's going to be blown out. The shadows are going to be too dark, and the colors are going to be muted. And when you compare life versus photo death, there's a huge difference. And that's why we tell people to go plein air painting or paint from life.
Oh, absolutely.
What app are you using today?
This is Procreate, which I'm a big fan of. I've tried quite a few different apps, but I feel like Procreate is the closest to how painting actually works. I would say that my biggest problem with all of the apps for painting is that, remember how we were talking about 𝗪𝗶𝗁𝗪? It's really difficult on a lot of these apps to pick because there's 3 elements of color. But if you look at this color wheel right now, I can change my hue, my red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, and I can change my value going from dark to light. But for the most part, they're changing the value by adding black to the paint. But you can change a value by adding any color to the paint. And that's what creates what we call chromatic neutrals. And so let's say I want a dark green, but I want it to be a red green instead of a black green. What you have to do, so here's my dark green that has black added to it. If I wanted to neutralize it with red instead of black, because the only option it gives me on this color wheel is to change value with black. It does not give me a neutralization option to go towards to neutralize towards orange or purple or green or whatever. So what you have to do is you have to take down the transparency and then add in, like if I wanted it to neutralize it towards red, get a dark red, and I take the transparency down to say 25%, and you see how I can now neutralize it into a reddy green, but I can't just select that color using the options they give me here.
Yeah. Deb asked, do our eyes see color differently than someone else's eyes? Yes.
Yes and no. So I do not want to claim to be a scientist because I am not, but there's a great podcast on something called 𝗪𝗀𝗁𝗪 that Radiolab did a few years ago. And I encourage everybody to listen to it because there are some slight differences based mostly along gender lines. So most people have 3 cones this is the way I understand it. Please double check it with your local scientist. The way I understand it is that most people have 3 cones for receiving color into their eye. Some women, due to a genetic mutation that is only on the X chromosome, can have 4 cones for receiving color. And about 10% of men only have 2 cones for receiving color, hence the red-green color blindness that's prevalent in men. Now, if you have a 4th cone, it can work at different levels, right? So it might give you a few extra colors, but a fully functioning 4th cone, we only know of 1 true tetrachromat in the world right now, and she's some doctor in England, and she can see a million more colors than the rest of us, right? Which is pretty cool. But here's the thing, we can't all win the genetic lottery all the time. But the coolest thing about this study to me was that this woman who is a true tetrachromat, as they were bringing other women into test, was actually able to help the other women. Like she was able to coach them to see more colors than they could before they met her, right?
Yeah, and the other thing is that red light therapy changes the colors in your vision.
Oh, I have not heard this before.
So it increases your ability to perceive color.
I had no idea about that. Yes. I would say that as somebody who teaches a lot of people how to paint, that there is a certain degree that you can see color more accurately than you can now if you train with somebody who can see more colors than you. And that, sometimes students are like, well, this is how I see the color, but it's not that we are just different people. It's that their eyes can actually be trained to see the color a little bit better still.
That's
But
exactly right. I studied with 𝗪𝗀𝗁𝗀𝗃, who was a colorist,
ooh,
and she'd say, "Look out there. What color do you see?" I'd say, "Green." She said, "Look again." I'd say,
right.
"Green." She said, "No, it's purple." And once I started looking for it, I realized it was, but my brain was telling me it must be green because it's a distant tree.
Yes, yes. Well, that's what we call symbolic color, right? When we assign colors to different things, like trees are green, we're going to see the green even if it's not actually green. And I'm going to go on like a little side quest here. Let me just take this down
Dennis
for a second.
Marshall says there are some mushrooms that, if ingested, could help you see more colors.
Okay, maybe we don't want to be promoting that on your show, Eric. Okay, there's something that I learned when I was in atelier training that blew my mind, and that I feel like could be just a really helpful way of how to think about color. Because the idea is that every color has a red, a yellow, and a blue in it. Every color, unless it's a pure chroma note, right, is going to have these. So while I have my opacity down, if I take some red and I take some yellow and I take some blue, I'm going to get what's called a chromatic neutral. All right. So when I just have red and yellow, of course, I get orange. And then when I add the blue into it, I'm going to get something that's, I need the blue's more potent. So I need to take down the transparency more. All right. And the idea is that we're trying to create a color. Now it's too green, which means too much blue and too much yellow. So I need a little bit more red. And the idea here, oh, now we're too orange. Sorry, we need more yellow, I think. Actually, it's one of these things that you just have to build. So you go too green and then you add some red and you just kind of keep adding until these colors are giving you your chromatic neutral here.
Susan says, after cataract surgery, her color vision was amazingly better. Me too. I couldn't see lavenders and certain blues until after I had my eyes fixed.
I have heard that from other people as well.
So it was an amazing, it was like, wow. And the reason I had it done is because my wife kept saying, your paintings all look very dark and orange. And I said, no, they don't.
Isn't it funny how our spouses can always tell before we do?
Yeah.
I need to bring this down just a little bit. I'm going back and forth. I don't want to take all day doing this, but essentially what we're trying to do is to basically get a grayish color here that doesn't read as a green gray or an orange gray or a blue gray. This one is still leaning a little bit orange, but I don't want to take all day doing this. But the thing is that you can lean it just a little bit one direction or another direction, but it still has a red, a yellow, and a blue in it. If it has a red and yellow in it, it has an orange in it. If it has a yellow and a blue in it, it has a green in it, right? And so when you're looking at a color, sometimes you'll see a color like this out in nature, and you'll be saying, oh, it's green. And then you'll be thinking, or is it blue? And all of a sudden it'll feel blue to you. Or you'll be like, oh, it's orange, right? And then all of a sudden you're seeing the orange in it. And the reason that it's so confusing is because all of those colors are actually in anything that's neutralized. Every color has a red, a yellow, and a blue. And when your brain is thinking blue, that blue stands out more to you in the color. When you're thinking red, that red stands out more to you in that color. So that's why often when you're out in nature and you're like, my teacher says it's green or purple and I'm not seeing it, that's why when they suggest to you that it's purple, that you can suddenly start seeing it, because anything, unless it's a pure chroma note, has a red, a yellow, and a blue in it. All right, that was kind of like a big side quest. Sorry, let's go back to our studies. Okay, so, all right, we were talking about.
What were we talking about?
I'm like, okay, we are doing studies because we are talking about, I'm just going to get a new layer here. We were talking about, okay, we changed on this one a background color. And this time over here, we just did this one, and we're going to start talking about how we can crop it differently, because that's something else. Often we set up a painting and we start painting it and we haven't really considered what space on our canvas do we want this to take up. So, one thing that is a very obvious thing to do is to increase the amount of negative space around our subject, right? So what if I made the flowers look much smaller, right? What if I added just more breathing room for our poor flowers here? And maybe some space around our dresser as well. right? How does that change the feel of our whole painting, right? I would say that when we add more background, it makes the flowers feel less majestic. And do we want that? Maybe we want something a little calmer and less chaotic and less aggressive, right, in our painting. Or maybe we liked it better, more cropped. So if I take this off, what if we want to like just really emphasize, just how dramatic this is? We can really maybe crop out the dresser altogether and make the whole painting just about this big dramatic floral in here, right? So how we crop a painting gives just as much of an effect to our composition as what colors we're using. So this is kind of a second study thought. So our first study thought, we talked about, okay, we're going to just work on the background color. How does that affect our painting? Second study thought, okay, does cropping affect our painting? And, I kind of like the idea that we had where we had more space. Oops. What did I do? We had some more space. Oh, I erased it. That's why. I'm going to put it back. More space, more breathing room around this. I feel like, a peaceful moment isn't a terrible idea in a big dramatic floral like this. Maybe I like that. Maybe I don't. Something to think about, right? And then I'm trying to just make sure that we're on time with our studies here. All right. Okay, so I want to do just one more cropping where we're experimenting with just the overall big design of the painting. And actually for this one, I'm just going to keep working on this one that we did just because we're running low on time here. So I'm going to keep working on here. But one thing I want to point out to everybody is that when I was designing this, when I set this up, the thought that I had in my head is I wanted to dance like this through the painting. And what I mean by that is that I had this white note here, this little white note here, and then this ribbon here. And I wanted this feeling of a dance diagonally across my painting. Now, the question is that coming through right now? Maybe. Like we have a little bit of the ribbon down here and we have, this flower up here. But with this lighter background, we now have a light on light. And so that's making this less important than it was when I had a darker background. So that's something to consider. Maybe
Put a leaf behind it.
Yes, excellent suggestion. So let's add some darkness around it. Oops. To really emphasize that. Excellent. Already better. Very much popping. Maybe we do, something down here as well where the ribbon is sitting on something dark so that it's standing out a little bit more as well against that dark background. Maybe even I add another one of these florals down here at the table next to my little ribbon situation, right? Just to give it a little bit more oomph to really exaggerate this diagonal. The other thing too is that this is such a big painting that maybe I need a counter idea. There's more stuff up here, kind of squiggling off this direction. There's some stuff up here. What if we have this diagonal here, maybe I need a counterpoint. Maybe I want a throw line kind of being, what do they call it in music? Not contrapposto, because that's the art thing where you're doing opposites, but counterpoint. I think it's counterpoint. I guess I used that word already. But maybe if the light is going this way, maybe I want to add kind of this darker counterpoint. Like maybe I want some emphasizing dark areas going across here because we have the shadow on the dresser down here. So maybe I want to create some sort of connection going the other way, right? So thinking about our composition holistically, is really important. So often as artists, we are like, oh, I'm going to put a flower here, 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 and here, but they don't make sense together, right? So we want to always make sure that we're thinking from big ideas to small ideas, and the biggest ideas in our paintings are the overall movement.
Yo. Hello, Norway. Welcome. Well, I think, if you were to talk to Don Victor, who is a guy who's been training me on composition, he would, first off, you want to have a strong vertical in every painting, and you want to have a strong horizontal in every painting, and you want to have a strong horizontal in every painting, and then you want a spot o' light And what's nice, what he suggests is that you don't have to make the horizontal an actual horizontal. You can lead the eye like you did with the ribbon, then the flower, then the flower. So
Yeah.
your eye is going across there. So that creates the sense of a strong vertical without actually having it be a vertical line.
Absolutely. I did shut down the iPad because I want to just very quickly go back to where we started and talk about our real life. And I just want to make sure that I'm back on the screen before I start pointing to things.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, for whatever reason, I don't see it the same as I normally do. So my apologies. Okay. So we are back here, and kind of what Eric was just saying, like, have a big diagonal, have a spot, but also, the advantage of doing studies, you don't have to just do studies of your own setups. Like, do little studies of paintings that you really admire by the old masters and figure out what they're thinking. How did they design it? Sometimes when you're just doing like a little study of it, you're like, oh, that's why they put that one flower there. Oh, that's why they used that color, right? When you have to go through the process of matching it, it can be really helpful. Okay. So, coming back here, I really loved the idea of when those shapes were really strong by having the lighter backgrounds. And so, I'm probably going to put up a few layers of my light tool because it will lighten the background here. Also, maybe some yellow because I want a warm white instead of cold. So what I can do is I can layer a few layers of tulle with yellow behind it, and it'll create a nice, warm, lighter value in my background. And then also, I loved what Eric had suggested, because when I make this background lighter behind this big flower over here, it gets lost, it becomes less important. So, I'm also going to add some leaves on this side behind this flower to make sure that it's popping. And to get this big diagonal really reading cleanly, I'm probably going to add a bigger white moment down here. Possibly I'll go steal another one of my neighbor's flowers. Shh, I'm a menace to my neighbors. I'm always taking the flowers. Mostly with permission, I promise. But anyways, get one more and place it down here to have that nice strong moment that we discussed. Okay, I think for once I am actually out of words, Eric.
It's not possible. Okay, well, I'll tell you what, while you're gathering some words, I'm just going to take a break here and let you think about a couple more words to put a cap on this. Okay?
All right. I'm excited.
All right. Okay, good. All right. Mandy Theis is our guest today, and she's amazing, but she's out of words. Okay, I'm not out of words. I got a couple of things I'm going to tell you about. First off, we have a very important thing coming up in November, and it is called Art Business Mastery Day. And we did it last year in January with about 8 or 10 guest speakers. And it was such a hit. We had thousands of people attending. People said, do it again, but next year do it so we can plan our year before the year starts. And so we're doing it in November, but we have completely different guests, completely different topics, and we're going to saturate you with a day of really amazing content to help you figure out how to make more money selling your art, right? And also, this is going to be, knock wood, the release of my new book, and everybody on that particular broadcast will get access before anybody else does, which is pretty cool. Well, maybe not. Anyway, go sign up now so you don't forget. And it's very, very cost efficient to do it. It's very inexpensive. It should be expensive, but I just want everybody to attend. So go to artbizmastery.com. That's coming up. The other thing that's coming up, I don't know if we have a slide for this or not, but last night I was going through some old photos. And last year we did an event in the middle of winter, and it was called Winter Art Escape. And it's the first time we ever did it. The goal was that I have friends who call and they'd be like, I'm really sick of winter. I want to get out of here. I want to go someplace nice. I want to be able to paint. I don't want to paint in the snow. You know the drill, right? So I said, okay, well, I'll do an event. And I chose St. Augustine, Florida for my first event. And we were having this opening cocktail party in the lobby of the hotel. And there's a big screen TV there. And all of a sudden on the screen came this thing. It showed this blizzard going across all the United States and all the airport closings. And everybody in there is like, yeah, we made it. we had a couple of people who were actually the last flights out before the airports were closed. And so we're doing it again this year. We're doing it in Hilton Head and Savannah. It's called 𝗪𝗀𝗁𝗂𝗍, and it's going to be beautiful. You're going to have your sand, your toes in the warm sand. We're going to be painting all around the area. Savannah's beautiful. Hilton Head's beautiful. The water, the rocks, the sand, the beaches, the palm trees, and most importantly, the friendships. And so we're going to be doing that. And of course, if you wait until February, it'll be sold out, and then you won't have it in your plan. But you know, if you live in a place where it gets cold, you know it's going to get really awful. And you know by about the early February, you're going to be sick of it. And so go ahead and treat yourself. No work, no chores, no drama, just painting. We paint all week together. We give you a map of the places. We go to those places together, or if you can go off on your own. We meet every morning and night. We have our breakfast, lunch, and dinner together. We put our paintings out. We do all kinds of fun things. We have music, and so it's a fun event. Just go to 𝗪𝗀𝗁𝗂𝗀.com, and I'll be there, and I hope you'll be there. Okay, and then we have coming up, the next online event we have coming up is Pastel Live, I believe. And Pastel Live is going to be on September 17th through 19th with an optional Essential Techniques Day on the 16th. Just go to pastellive.com if you want to learn more about that. Okay, we're going to go back to Mandy. Mandy, do you have more words?
I think I found them again just for you, Eric.
All right, good.
Yes. So, of course, I'm always very passionate about studies and design, and I would love to hear more from your audience as well. Like, who here does studies? Who doesn't? What's the value of doing study? What's not? So I would like to say, as much as I value studies, and it helps me think about my compositions, occasionally I just see something that's just so good the way it is that I just jump in and paint it. And I don't want to disrupt myself with a study. So I'm not a purist, but I am a supporter of the study movement.
Well, I will tell you that having a tablet, an iPad, is a really terrific way to do quick studies. I don't like to use it outdoors because it's kind of hard to see, but indoors it's terrific. And that way you can just play through all the ideas. As a matter of fact, you can even pull photos in and then say, okay, well, I'd like to move this tree. I'd like to do that. There's a lot of fun stuff you can do with it, and play. And that's what this is all about.
Well, and I think an important thing to mention about the technology that I think is very helpful to my painting practice, and I see it with other artists as well, is that it takes some of the barrier of entry from making art that day. Like if you're like, oh, I have 5 minutes, I don't have time to get out my oil paint, set up my easel, and just having immediate access to put down a visual thought, I have found has greatly improved the amount of time that I get to spend thinking about art and thinking about design in my day. So I think taking away some of those barriers can be really helpful. And I encourage all of you to experiment and play with it a little bit.
So I have my studio set up here. I'm in the Adirondacks, and I have 3 workstations. Well, actually, I have 2 workstations. One workstation is outfitted with gouache and watercolor, and the other workstation is outfitted with oils. So for the same purpose, right? They're like, usually after work, I don't, I go to dinner and then I want to come back and paint, and I don't want to have to get my oils out and go through all that nonsense. And so being able to just dip into gouache or watercolor is really simple. You don't have to put your colors out. You just go for it.
Absolutely.
And the same thing with having a tablet, and I can have a tablet in the house with me and be playing with ideas. So I'm always thinking about art. So it's a really good thing.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference to keep your barriers low, however you can do that. So always having a space set up, always having something with a low barrier of entry, even a little sketchbook in your pocket that is on you so that you don't have to go find it when you get an idea. All of these things can help you make more art in a day.
Mandy has a really terrific online school, and you should check it out. I actually have access to it. Thanks to Mandy, I was able to look at it and get into it. And if you're a painter and you want to learn how to do what Mandy does, she's got a really great course that's for for, starting at very beginning basics and then taking you up. And it's really terrific. And she's not paying for this ad. We're just doing it because we're nice people.
Oh,
But do you want to tell people how they can find that?
Absolutely. So you can go to 𝗧𝗵𝗂𝗪𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏𝑎𝑟ts.com. I'm opening enrollment again on September 1st for this course. You can also email me at admin@𝗧𝗵𝗂𝗪𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏. I am reworking the website right now, so please be patient with me if you get any error messages. I'm working my way through them. I had a big transition, but the course is delivered through an online platform. You can download it on your phone. You can watch it on the go. And it's really designed for people that want to have atelier training that don't have an atelier in their area. And
Okay, so for the people who are dense like me, would you tell people what the heck an atelier is and how to spell it?
Oh, absolutely. So atelier is spelled Atelier. It's just the French word for studio. And it's the way artists were trained for many generations. So Da Vinci didn't wake up painting the Mona Lisa one day. He actually trained in an atelier for 10 years and got kicked out by his master. And a lot of people don't realize that that training still exists. You can still get that level of intense training with people who have been painstakingly handing down this information from generation to generation. And it's available and accessible to you. Sometimes it's scary for people because they think, oh, I can't paint like that already. I'm not ready to sign up for your atelier, Mandy. And that's not the case at all. Like, know nothing and come into my atelier, or know some things and I can help you, get where you want to go. But don't be intimidated by the fancy word. It's just a word for studio. And that's where you need to be if you want to learn how to draw and paint realistically.
Yep. So I think of atelier as the studio, the training studio of an artist. And there are schools that are atelier that have multiple artists, but the idea is, it's the master handing down her technique to the student. And then the student eventually gets so good that they then start their own atelier. And when we started Fine Art Connoisseur magazine, most of this was almost dead, as you know. And part of our goal was to start bringing life to it again, which we helped do that along with the Art Renewal Center, which played a bigger role than we did. And there were very few people training that way. Today, there are second and third generation people training. Absolutely. And Mandy is one of them. And so check it out.
Yes. It really is a wonderful, wonderful gift to give yourself. Sometimes people are like, oh, I'll train later, I'll go later. But, when you train now, you have that knowledge and skill in your skill set, in your toolbox, the rest of your life. Like it's the best thing I ever did to get this training. And I encourage you, if you have an interest in drawing and painting, it's more accessible than it's ever been. I had to pay like $10,000 to $12,000 a year and move across the country to get the training. And now you can have it online for a very modest sum. So it's more accessible than it's ever been before.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I always tell myself one day I'm going to do that. And one day has never come.
It's not too late, Eric. Today could be the day.
All right. Well, that's why I have access. All right, guys. Thank you. And thank you to Mandy Theis. I always screw up her name, so my apologies for getting it wrong earlier. And
you got it right like 3 out of 4 times. That's the new record, I think.
Yeah. Well, I'll try to change that. See if I can make it better. All right, Mandy. Thanks for being here today.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure as always.
All right. Mandy is always good with us. We like her. She's co-hosted many times and when I'm away, and she's just terrific. We love her. So anyway, I think you guys got a lot out of that today. Hope so. Reminder, you can subscribe to this program. We're here every weekday at 12 noon. We've been here since COVID began. We've got hundreds, actually thousands of shows, free teaching. Now, we have lots of ways that you can go beyond that. For instance, we have a website called painttube.tv. We have over 700 professionally produced art instruction courses from the world's leading masters. And 700, yeah, that's right. And some of them are really, really in depth. They're all well photographed and done professionally and much better than we can do in an environment like this. And so if you want the real deal, go check out something like that or something like what Mandy has. And then you'll soar to the next level. We've seen people do it all the time. We have a free gift for everybody today because we love you. The free gift for you today is 97 Incredible Art Secrets from the World's Finest Artist. It's a video, and you can watch it instantly online, or if you want a DVD, we can still provide that for you. Yes, a lot of people still use them, so we still provide them. Anyway, if you want the DVD, just pay for the shipping. Otherwise, you can get this for free, and just go to 97artsecrets.com/ASL for Art School Live. And I think that's all I got for you guys today. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you again tomorrow. We're getting closer to the holiday weekend, which means we're getting closer to fall. I'm up in the Adirondacks right now, and fall is here. It's amazing. It's like cold and damp, and the changing of colors is already beginning, which is very, very early. And so I'm going to get a chance to experience some fall here before I go to Fall Color Week, which is my retreat. It's sold out, so you can't get into that, but you can get into Winter Art Escape. Okay, guys, thanks for being here today, and take care. Thanks again to Mandy. Bye-bye.